All right, so now what we want to do is we want to save our incident to the Firebase Firestore database. In order to do that, we have to add some sort of a function in our add incident view model that will allow us to save the incident. So we might be very tempted to write something like this. And I'm going to ask you that what is wrong with this. So inside our add incident view model, I can go ahead and say save incident. That's a good name for a function. You can pass in the incident model that we just created, which will be incident. And it can be async and all that stuff. So we can go ahead and say async. But what is wrong with this function? Apart from that, it's not really returning anything. That's fine. Here we go. We can return something. But what is the main or the bigger problem in this function? So here's a hint. This particular function, save incident, will be called by the view, by the widget. So if you're following MVVM design pattern, there's a big problem, right? Okay, so here's the problem. If this particular function has to be called, which it has to be, called using the widget, using the view should not have any idea about the model. So you can't really use it over here. Now you can create some sort of a view model and that should be fine. We do need to pass in a couple of different things when we are saving an incident. We need to pass in the title. So you may end up with something like this. Oh, I need to pass in the title. Oh, I need to pass in the description. I need to pass in the photo URL. I need to pass in the user ID. I need to pass in the date. It's not really recommended ever to have so many different parameters for your function. The ideal function is a function with no parameter at all, like 0. So instead of doing all of that stuff, what we can do is we can create some sort of a view model which captures a state from the user interface. Now, you can go ahead and call it incident view model, but we're going to be using incident view model later on. We'll be creating that. So I'm going to call that incident view state. Now I can go ahead and put it inside the same view model folder, or you can create a subfolder inside that. So I'm just going to call it incident view state.dart. Now the reason that I'm calling this a incident view state is that this particular view model, it's actually a view model, is going to be capturing the input from the user, from the UI, and populating it into this particular incident view state. But it will look exactly like, it is exactly like a view model. So I'll call it incident view state. You can even be a little bit more descriptive. You can even call this add incident view state if you want. That's perfectly fine too. And the only purpose of incident view state is to capture the values. All of those values from the user interface. So what kind of values we are trying to capture? Well, if you look at the incident, we are pretty much trying to capture all of these different values, right? I mean, we may not be able to capture the user ID because we can just get the user ID from somewhere else, but we are trying to capture all of these different things. So what should we do now? I would just simply just go ahead and kind of like copy this, all of this into incident view state. There we go. And the reason again that we are not using the incident class is that incident class is our model, so it may contain the business logic. So we don't really want to use that part. We don't really want to expose the incident on the UI. The only time we are going to expose anything related to the incident will be through the user view model. Now let me go ahead and copy this. And this is incident view state. And there we go. So it's pretty much not really doing anything, right? It's simply capturing the value of user ID, the title, the description, the photo URL, and it's just creating an object, and that's pretty much it. Now if we go back to our add incident view model, I can actually go over here and I can say that we will be getting incident view state, and that will contain all the different values. Now, view state, view model is the same exact thing. I'm just naming it view state because incident view model will be something else down the road. So that's why I'm not calling it view model. So next thing that we want to do is we want to implement our save function. So let's go inside over here into the save incident, and we'll put a try block over here, and we'll say Firebase firestore instance dot collection. This means that what kind of a collection that you are creating. If the collection is not there, it will be created. If it is there, well, then it will be used. So I'm going to go ahead and call my collection called incidents, and in that collection we will have all the incidents. Dot add, and now we can add a data. The problem is that the data we want to add, we don't really want our incident view state to be interacting with this. We want our incident view state to be converted into an actual model, because there might be some business rules. I mean, right now they're not, but in your application, there might be some business rules that you want to invoke when you're creating an incident object. So now I can go ahead and say incident, and I can go ahead and say incident dot. You can see that we have from, so I'm just going to say from incident view state, and I can simply go ahead and pass in the incident view state, which, by the way, this particular function doesn't really exist. So I can go ahead and create that function. So I'll go back to the incident, and I will create another factory function. I will call it incident dot from view state, incident view state, vs as view state, and then we can use the same exact thing as we were using before. So we will go ahead and return an incident, and for the incident to work, we have to provide the title. So we can say view state dot title. We can assign that. Then we have description, which is view state dot description. Then we have photo URL, which is view state dot photo URL. And then we have user ID, and the same thing is going to go for everything. And finally, the incident date, which is view state dot incident date. And let's see if we can call toDate on it. Well, this one doesn't really have toDate. It's already might be toDate, so we don't have to call anything on this. All right. Now let's go back to our add incident view model. And now after creating the incident, which is right here, we can pass the incident right there. So we can go ahead and call it incident dot to map, which is the function that we have implemented earlier on. And in the catch, we can catch a generic kind of an exception. And after catching the exception, we can check the message, or we can set the message. So let's go ahead and create a message property. So I'm going to go ahead and create a message property right over here. And finally, I can go ahead and assign it. So I can say message equals to E, or unable to save or something. So unable to save incident. Perfect. The other thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that the incident is actually saved. So in order to do that, I can go ahead and introduce the isSaved property. And this is the same exact architecture that we have been using before, which is initialize initially to false. Now I can go ahead and say isSaved equals to true. And finally, I can go ahead and notify the listeners and also return the isSaved property. Let's go ahead and do a hard reset. Okay, so now we have a saved incident, and we need to still call this. So let's go back to our add incidents page, and we need to make sure that we are calling it correctly, because in order to call and work with incident, we have to make sure that we have received the file. So over here, after getting the file path of the uploaded file, we will check if the file path is not empty, or it's not empty, meaning we have uploaded the file. Then first thing we are going to do is get the title, which is from the title controller.text. The second thing we are going to do is we will get the description, which is the description controller.text. And then we will actually save the incident. Save the incident to the firestore database. That's what we want to do. So this means the first thing we're going to do is we are going to create an incident view state. So I'm just going to call it incident view state. And I need to pass in all of these different things. So let me go ahead and see if we can copy this out. There we go. We are missing the user ID. So what we're going to do is inside save incident, we're going to get the user ID. So final user ID equals to Firebase auth dot instance. Let's go ahead and make sure that we are importing Firebase auth. There we go. So Firebase auth dot instance dot current user dot UID. That's how you get the user ID, the unique ID of that user. Now that we have created an incident view state, we can go ahead and call add incident view model dot save incident, passing in the incident view state. This is going to take some time, so we're going to wait for it. And finally, we will get the is saved. And when it is saved, we can close the modal or do whatever we want. So if it is saved, you can do any other stuff. I'm just going to say navigator.pop context and return true, indicating that it has been saved correctly. All right. So let's go ahead and try to run this and see that if it saves our new incident to the firestore database or not. Now we do have to make sure that we are logged in, because if we are not logged in, then this particular line is not going to work and is going to return us nothing or null. So we have to make sure we're logged in. So I'm going to go ahead and do a hard reset. I'm just going to go over here to the login page and let's try to log in. And let's enter the password. And let's try to log in. Okay, so we're logged in. Now we can go to the add incident. And I can say add a picture, select from photo library. I'm going to say the pothole. And I'm going to say this is a pothole. And some sort of a description of pothole is also required. Pothole on road. And we will go ahead and submit. Okay, so it went away after a while. Let's go ahead and check it out in our firestore database. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this. And now we have an incidents collection created. We have a particular document. This is a document ID. And right over here, we have the incident that we reported. It has a particular title, which is right here. It has a description. It has an incident date, a photo URL of the photo that we just uploaded to the Firebase storage. And we also have a user ID indicating that who was the user who reported this particular incident. So this is actually really, really cool that we were able to do all of those different things and how quickly we were able to do these things. Now, the other thing that we want to do is we want to display the incidents. All the incidents we want to display right over here. So let's go ahead in the next lecture, take a look at how we can fetch all the incidents and display it on our home page.